Good morning. First of all, thank you for coming and for participating in this weekly practice, this studying the Dharma together. Thank you for your support by participating, by studying the Dharma, by being part of the Sangha, the spiritual community. And thank you for contributing and supporting us financially. We need the help. Pardon the throat clearing. Please continue to help us if you can. This morning's Dharma talk is titled Without Location. So the illusion is that everything is located, and the illusion that is constantly reinforced just by eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, that something is occurring and this is happening. I'm here, and we're constantly telling ourselves little stories about who we are, where we're going. We re-identify. You can see how unstable the ego is by just one little thing goes wrong and we start to panic or come apart or think something is threatened. Excuse me. Extreme narcissism, extreme belief in a separate being, and we align ourselves with this body mind, and we will fight to protect ourselves, our ideas, our concepts, our opinions, our beliefs. Don't believe anything. Don't disbelieve anything, and don't ignore anything. Liberate yourself by looking at the prison that your mind is creating around you constantly by using this reference and that reference and this opinion, that opinion, someone else's opinions. You might think, you might gather in your awareness that you're somehow liberated because you're peaceful most of the time. This won't last. Nothing lasts. Anything that shows up is going away. Dogen, back in the 13th century, the founder of this particular Sokuzan school of Buddhism, had a teaching called drop off body and mind, which is to say, my understanding of what he was pointing at is see that they are unreal. You don't have to push them away. If you push them away, they push back. If you're watching a really exciting or challenging or scary, adventurous movie, and you have an underlying feeling that it's unreal, this is very much the same as watching a movie. It's real in the sense that it's relatively real. It's here. But if you buy into that by assuming things about it, adding to it your ideas, then it takes on a reality that is very difficult to work with if you're working out of belief, disbelief, and all of the polarities, all the duality of the world, right and wrong, right and wrong, right. This is right, that's wrong. They should, they shouldn't. The very people who are scary because they so much believe their thoughts and are willing to sacrifice your life, your freedom, in order to manipulate you, control you, to go from the armor that you shows up at the kitchen table to defend yourself against your husband, wife, partner, mother, father, daughter, son, any of that that's really close by. That same armor is the same armor, a little different, that is used to build tanks. Atomic, why would you build an atomic, I mean, the why question doesn't even work here. Why would you build a bomb that if you use it, will kill you, will kill everyone? There's no way you can control that. Wulong said, is it just me, or is the volume not turned up? Is that what you asked, Wulong? So you can't hear me at all? A little bit?
We can hear you, Sokuzan. It's just it's coming in very faint.
Okay, maybe I should speak louder. Or we'll have the technical people come up here and see if they can't solve it either. Pardon me? I should snap my fingers. We're working on it, or rather, they are.
Yeah, Sokuzan, you have been audible this entire time, but as it gets better, we will let you know.
Thank you, Sanho. Is it better? Is it any better right now? No, still no. Isn't it interesting that all the technical, I think that AI is somewhere in the other room. Do you have any ideas, young man? They've got, oh, that wasn't what I asked you.
Well, it sounds like you just made it better, so
No,
well
I
done.
didn't. I did nothing. Nothing happened.
How is it now?
It is much better.
Well, then you just give the talk.
No.
If it,
Haushan.
Haushan gives the
Played
talk.
with the-
Nothing occurs in the sense of an act, something that's fundamentally dependable. Everything that is showing up is unreal. This is unreal. It's solid. That's why it's so difficult to work with it. Just like when something happens out in your living room or down the street or at your workplace or in your relationship dynamic, we have a reaction to it that's not, and that reaction to what is there reifies, reestablishes, and reinforces the unreality of that dynamic. It is called relative truth. We're not trying to escape it. We're just trying to see that it is unreal. And what is real? Find out. You have to find this out yourself. This doesn't mean you believe your thoughts, believe your feelings, believe your ideas, your concepts, nor do you discard them and throw them away and push them out so that you have this imagined space of serenity, like some of the Dharma teachers, so-called Dharma teachers, talk about. You cannot create peace just by being celibate or not eating anything after noon or going through some kind of ritualized calmness or ritualized silence. Without location. Look at the very location that is the idea of location and separation and validation that is happening when you sit on the cushion, sit in a symmetrical posture and look at the wall. Not much is occurring there. There's something occurring. What is it? Find out. Don't worry about the why questions. They just give you a because of sorts. But the what question, what is this? Find out, you find out yourself what it is. I can tell you now what you will find. You may not like to hear this, but you won't find anything. But it is the intention that is important. Don't shake your head, yes. You're welcome. Thank you for receiving that correction. Was that a correction? Did I just correct? What was your name again? Andre. Did I just correct Andre? Without location. We're here an hour ago, half an hour ago. At some point you were looking in the mirror, maybe brushing your teeth. That is, where is that now? Where is that? That you can't find that. You can't locate that apparent illusion, an illusion of you being in the kitchen. That's gone. And if you imagine you being in the kitchen, back in the kitchen right now, you can't find that either. You can't even find this. But you might want to start or come back to or return to just this as it is. We were talking, or I was mentioning something about I call them spontaneous realizers. Someone who in their life somehow just through whatever causes and conditions arise, they suddenly realize their whole identity drops out. The identity of this and everything else just falls apart. And they are beginning to realize what this is fundamentally. This does not happen very often. And it just rarely happens without some kind of really intense, strong mind training to see clearly. the truth yourself, not believe in something. Buddhism, any other ism, not about believing anything, nor is it about disbelieving anything. So when Dogen in the 13th century said, drop off body and mind, he didn't mean push it away. He meant, as far as I can see, from my own quite a number of years of looking at this and studying that teaching and listening to that and endeavoring to understand what it is deeply. It's the attachment we have to I'm this. And it's the attachment we have to I think this, or I think that, or I feel this way, or I feel that way. And we'll actually go back and forth, like in ping pong or tennis, back and forth between this and that and this and that. There's no middle way there. And even the middle way is unreal because it's founded on reference points of this way and that way. And it's trying to find some kind of middle way. Even that is an illusion. Yes, sir.
Is there a basic misunderstanding about location that you're addressing by saying without location?
I'm addressing, thank you. When I say without location is look at anytime you're in any location, look at it closely and without any thoughts about it, just receive whatever is there through whatever sense fields are operating, your skin, your seeing, your hearing, your how it appears, and also anything that shows up as far as any thoughts about it, any naming, and see deeply what that is. Receive that. That's why receiving or observing is so incredibly important. Just receive that. So when I say without location, look at the illusion of the location that you have. You're sitting in your car, or you're walking into Walgreens, or maybe you don't go to Walgreens, but somewhere you're going, coming and going somewhere. And you're always reestablishing the illusion that you're a separate solid being going from this place to that place. And you were over here, but now you're going over here. It's unreal. It's there, it's vivid. Necessary to see it yourself more.
Bowing. Is location a kind of identity we're projecting out? Bowing.
Yes. Yes, you're stabilized. We are stabilizing ourselves in something somewhere, and it might be warfare with someone, argument with someone, or it might be just the opposite, having a really enjoyable time visiting with someone, listening to what's happening in their life. Any of those dynamics are unreal. They're there and they're solid, or the illusion of solidity is extremely powerful. This is why Trungpa Rinpoche was once asked if he could define something like what it's like, or what to take hallucinogens like lysergic acid, ethylamide. And he said it's like super samsara. It's the same solidity and reality, but it's intensified. So everything is super real. So anything that arises in your mind seems super valid or real, right in your face. But at the same time, that is happening because everything is not true. The illusion that it's unreal happens at the same time. Very similar with other hallucinogens that emphasize the polarity. This is why sometimes people who take drugs might feel like you could use that to realize your true nature. And I'm not against that. That's possible. I'd say go do it. But you want to look. You might have to spend many years drugging yourself, doing something that is different than eating food and so on, which keeps the body going, but actually doing something to the mind stream. Excuse me, I'm not against it, but I'm certainly not going to be for it. What am I for? Hold still, have all the senses on receive, and observe what is coming and going, so that the consciousness itself, so that the awareness itself basically sees or understands or perceives or groks or apprehends or whatever what this is fundamentally. Fundamentally. This is why His Holiness the 16th Karmapa could say, just before he died, nothing happens. Same kind of teaching. Chisho, you have a question?
Sure. When I'm sitting on the cushion, the taste, touch, and smell seem to highlight location of the self, this body. It's all very personal. Whereas the other three are much less location or self-centric, but it seems to accentuate the other location. Do you suggest that, you often suggest we revert to the flashback on the senses. Do you suggest that we flash back on these personal senses to see through self? Is that an easier, or is it an advised step? Bye.
I don't know if I would call it easier, because the causes and conditions that are arising in anyone's consciousness that bring you to this gathering of people, or that take you away from it, or reinforce this part of your dynamic that is painful or scary or unnerving or causes anxiety. But it seems that becoming as radical, using the word radical, not as outrageous or different or causing chaos, but actually going to the foundation, the root situation. It seems that going to one of the senses, not fixating on it and trying to become more aware, but just flashing on it, flash on sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of hearing, just a flash around there gives us a better idea of how incredibly accommodating the consciousness is. Consciousness is not making any choices. Consciousness is not an individual, a person. It just is able to go here and go there, and it doesn't mind what disturbance arises. It doesn't look at something and then change its opinion or its idea or its structure around that. Liberated, even if the body doesn't continue. It's liberated from the prison of otherness, of the walls of the mind, some usually described traditionally as passion, aggression, ignorance, hope, and fear, all of those. And so coming back to your question, I would say some of that alternation, ASAP, alternating sense awareness practice, without holding tight on anything, just flash on this, go to that, sometimes described as just touch and go, just touch on the sense of touch and touch on the sense of seeing, smelling, tasting. Maybe just the first thing, going into the sense of taste, noticing there's not much happening there. That's also awareness. It came to a really a mini conclusion there. As soon as you come to a conclusion, things start to shut down. So it's awareness that's important there, not about getting somewhere. And it's the intention to see what this is, not about actually seeing, because you can't actually see what you're intending to see. Because if you do, then we're back to building a substrate under the ego that is someone who knows, someone who's enlightened, someone who's going to teach enlightenment to people, or become a guru or a Dharma teacher. So yes, do that. Yes, sir.
John Bowing. What is it, like you just brought up, to realize that you can't see it? What is that, and is it different than concluding that we can't see it? Bowing.
Can you paraphrase that, simplify it, so I can get to what you're asking me about?
It seems like I can hear that and think that, oh, I don't see it now, so I'm realized, and then just go off about my business. And it seems like that's missing what you're pointing at.
What I'm pointing at can't be seen. It can't be experienced. There's no experiencer left. But without that, without this kind of a teaching, not just from me, but without this kind of a teaching, the mind will continue to look for right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, life and death, and all the polarities that we get flooded by every day, just as we walk across the room, constant thinking to ourselves about everything. Necessary to see that, not stop it. It's just necessary to see it. More? Ask me something really hard.
In the third tenet, there's a phrase that says with and without location.
Yes.
So what is it to include the with location as well?
It's an illusion. This is unreal. This is an illusion. Let me do that again. Illusion, unreal. It's there. It has its own place in our hearing and our seeing. It seems so real, but it's unreal. It seems so established, so believable. Most of the world is running on that idea that right and wrong, up and down, back and forth. Even the really nice people who are helpful to others or have a humanistic approach to everything still believe in right and wrong. They think that the other people are really bad and are wrong. And the people who are on the other side of the bulwark, they're taking the other position. They're going to control everything, no matter who it hurts, because their ultimate understanding is, like we saw in the movie last night, which was what was that person's motivation? Oh, patriot. He was a patriot. So that patriot. So he lived out of being a patriot, but it was his idea of being a patriot. So he killed a lot of people, or tried to. No, I won't tell you the name of the movie. Yes.
If what you're talking about can't be seen or experienced, how is it that you and other teachers have been talking about this for centuries?
Because it's beyond identity, it's beyond location, it's beyond singularity, it's beyond that. And consciousness, look, I can create things in your consciousness right now. It's a completely open dimension. That doesn't make me give me some kind of power. But that's what's going on. We share this situation in terms of any kind of singularity called a person. You don't have to get rid of the singularity called a person just because I'm saying or anybody's saying that it's unreal. Have to work with that unreality also. More in that area if you have it.
I'm still trying to understand. What you're saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what I just said. You have anything? Go ahead.
Is it helpful to return to the concept, like without location in our day-to-day life when we get engrossed?
Yes, thank you. Yes, you could. You could actually be in any situation. In your situation, sitting in front of a computer screen or talking to someone or brushing your teeth is one I often mention. Just look at that situation and look at the illusion that you're in a particular location. The particularity of it is extremely seductive. You actually are here. You validate it with I can tell the color of this. I can see the shape of this. I can feel this with my hands. I can see this with my eyes. But the me is highly emphasized. I'm seeing this, and what I'm seeing is over there. Separation. The way it starts to come apart, and I've said this many times, and other teachers have said it also in different ways, is what you look at, you will start to see the identity part as that starts to dismantle, deconstruct, or come apart in your consciousness through the sitting practice of meditation, through the conceptual teaching of the Buddha's Dharma, down through the centuries, taken up by other teachers, as that comes apart, the identity part starts to get very shaky, and it looks for something to hang on to. And so the upside is it's leaving the prison of the sixth sense fields, the prison of the mind that wants to clamp down, and it's starting to see that the identity that was trapped and reified, reinforced in the seventh consciousness, as it's described in the Yogacara layout of the 8 consciousnesses. It starts to see that there's no solid self here. So then it starts to look out there. Well, if I'm not here, where am I? I'm there. Look, everything looks like a mirror. That's still path. That's still the path. You start to see that you're everywhere you are. You can see it in a very simple way that doesn't have many concepts. It's just a feeling that you're looking at yourself, no matter who you're looking at. Or there might be some kind of conceptual, something conceptual show up in your mind that may provide you with some words that you're trying to describe what you see is out there. You know it's out there and it's away from you, but it looks like something extremely familiar. Just look at that. And you could say when you're doing anything, sitting in a stoplight in your car, waiting for the light to change. Where am I? What is this? You could ask yourself that. What is this? This illusion that I'm here in this car. There's 3 garbage cans in a row that have been painted purple, and they're sitting on the north side of the building. Is that north? Is it north? Okay. We're on the same page, and it's on the top of this building. And each one of those are filled up with what? What's in them? Garbage. No. Why would you go to garbage? No. Bananas. Fresh. Not too ripe. Not too not ripe. You see them? They're sticking out the top. Purple garbage cans. Are they lined up from east to west, or are they lined up at all? No, they're not. They're in a triangle. There's 3 of them. Why would you disagree with me all the time? You see what I'm saying? We're sharing. What space are we sharing right now? It's a space of non-existence. It's a space of illusion. This is the illusion that is being pointed at. By looking at that illusion, which is just creating a dream out of nothing. I mean, it's not very creative. I'm thinking about garbage cans, and of course you filled them up full of trash, but I painted them purple. See how I helped you? So that reality is unreal, but it's made of consciousness. It's made of consciousness that can just, at your command, if you want to say command, it's not really that, but you can just invent anything. Everything is available. Consciousness always finds its own form. And what is that form? Whatever it wants, whatever it needs. But if it's operating out of humor and out of spontaneity and out of creativity and out of love, if you want to use the rawness of that word, you enjoy yourself. The yogi enjoys himself or herself with great simplicity. Remember those words? I misquoted, I know, but we all know where that comes from. You can actually do that. You can participate in the consciousness itself rather than go into the other area where you're not getting what you want or you're getting too much of what you don't want. And constant struggle in the mind stream, just clawing at ourselves, taking ourselves apart. It's like the old-fashioned record of the scratchiness on the 33 1/3. If it slips off the track, it starts to scratch. We deliberately do that to ourselves because it makes us feel like we're here. We almost like to suffer rather than to actually look and see this is unreal. Even pain, the pain of pain is unreal. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Yes, sir.
How is that a shared space if the image we're seeing is different?
That's why it is. You bring your toys, I bring my toys. We're playing in the same room. And each of us have, depending on how free you are of hope and fear, each of us have the same ability to express what this is. This is what writing poetry, writing music, making paintings. This is what all the people in the arts have some kind of idea. There's something that can be said with just paint. There's something that can be said with just moving words around in different ways and then listening to them. Something can be done with, you're a musician. Look what you've done. Some of the things that you've done with music. Don't smile, I'm not complimenting you. You're starting to get like self-centered. All right. Get up here. Oh, okay. I'm gonna really embarrass you. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think I do.
Then tell me what you see.
So I just felt like you responded to the question I had, in that I had some confusion around the shared space being like the same form showing up, but it seems like you're pointing at the space itself.
Even the space is an illusion. There isn't anything that you can point to, name, or that has any kind of really solid reality. Even a knife in the chest it's going to be vividly real and unreal at the same time. It's always both. It's always real and unreal.
Sokuzan, that space with the purple garbage cans.
Yes.
If there's nothing showing up in that space for a moment, is what's showing up in the rest of the senses taking up essentially the same space?
You could say that, maybe a little bit. I think I follow what you're looking for there, but it won't function as a reference point so that you can do that again and produce something in that area. You're completely without reference point. That's how you really create. That's why artists down through the centuries, that when they describe, especially really great, Giacometti, his sculptures, the Italian, I think he lived in France, but Alberto Giacometti talked about what he produced. And if you've ever seen any of his sculptures, you could see how he was really trying to make visible the invisible. You have to look at it. You couldn't just have a passing, oh, that's interesting, in the gallery and go to the next piece. You have to contemplate that for a while. But able to take physical form and move it in such a way that it's saying something that is beyond the form. This is what great works of art are doing. They're taking the same thing that you have access to, a bunch of color or a bunch of words or sounds, and putting them together in such a way that something else is evoked, some otherness is evoked that brings up something else in us, a feeling of just deep understanding. And some people, quite often, because they are so wrapped up in their particular artistic production, they haven't not investigated that there's no solid being here. And the only way that shows up is if they're questioned about it. Quite often artists will say, well, I just feel like it just came through me. I don't feel like I didn't even do it. So this is how lack of self-centeredness starts to show up in the art. The artist might, in their everyday life, might be incredibly unfair with their partners or mean or self-centered, but something about when they're producing the artwork, it evokes something beyond what they're fundamentally working with. It just transcends that more.
Is there a shared space where all the sense bases come together? I mean, are the six senses all showing up in a common space?
Consciousness uses sense of taste. That's just a kind of consciousness, but consciousness is the same everywhere. Eventually you start tasting what you're looking at. Sometimes a teaching shows up that way. Rochig, with a Tibetan teaching of one taste, that everything you see is just this. It may not even have much to do with actual physically tasting something, but just seeing that everything, it's just this. And it's not a conclusion. It's the closest word probably would come to it is perception. Direct perception of identity, lack of identity, any polarity is seen all at once. And there's no position. And if you see it, you may, just like the spontaneous realizer that we were talking about, Byron Katie, who did not practice meditation, she just suddenly awoke to what this was, and her version of it, not what I'm saying now, but it seems that's what she did. And then over a period of 15 years or so, tried to understand what it even was, and how she could possibly help others. She didn't go to meditation, teach that, although she does now. I think, I don't know if she's here now, but Susan Hirschfield, I don't see her here now, but she sent me a quote of Katie's that was talking about encouraging people to meditate, though she didn't realize that way. She eventually saw that probably can't do this just with the intellect. Going to have to spend some time just doing nothing. Yes.
Music bowing in the meditation instruction this morning, you said, or you were quoted as saying, to look at thoughts as leaves in the stream, but look at what's right in front. I'm paraphrasing. Look at what's right in front of you, not upstream or downstream.
Yes.
Is that pointing to a similar thing?
I said
as
that.
well? You did.
That's pretty cool. Who was I when I did that? Where was that at? Was that one of the 108 meditations? Which number was it? Okay, Chisho, which number was it? He doesn't know either.
No, I'm not familiar with this one. At least I'm not, it's not something.
Okay, that doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the idea of just using that as an image so that when you're meditating, you can have a little bit of a slight reference point there when thoughts come and go. They just come and go. If you watch them, if you don't add to it, if you don't comment on the thought, or try to stop yourself from thinking, or leave the thought for trying to be with your breath or any of the other mumbo jumbo that tends to come up. Just receive it, just like you're looking at a leaf. And I think I said the other day, don't argue with goldfish. Didn't I say something like that? Something. Don't take issue with anything. Just whatever shows up, it has its own passport. It gets to be exactly what it is. And and if you try to do anything with it, you just add to the confusion that secures and reifies a paranoid self that doesn't want to look at reality and see that reality is there's no solid being anywhere. There's just consciousness only. Yes.
Music bowing is, if you were seeing what was in front of you without an upstream or a downstream like that, is that similar to no location that you're talking about now?
Yes, there's no location there. But you wouldn't have, pardon me, you wouldn't jump to the idea, oh, I think I'm seeing no location. That wouldn't show up at all. There wouldn't be any location nor no location. It would be non-dual. There would not be a position on it. It wouldn't even be a position of, Advaita or non-duality. That comes later when you're trying to help someone see this. You come up with those concepts and ideas. But there's no word for this. There are no words. It's beyond it. If you see it, you've transcended everything. And you have no location. Your body is still located here or there, but this is an illusion. More.
Music bowing, something about that metaphor of no upstream and no downstream, especially with thought patterns.
Yes.
How do we create a sense of an upstream and a downstream?
By wanting something that's in the future and regretting something that's in the past. Actually feeling there was a past. This reinforces the self-centeredness that is has a location in this body-mind complex that we call a human being. We think we are this human being. It's not that this body isn't here. It is here. And it is located in the illusion of time and space. Just receive, no, don't add, subtract, or divide. And that process seems to involve a lot of watching the way you conclude or the way you judge, add and subtract, divide, evaluate, push things this way or that way, in order to get some kind of foothold on some kind of area that you might be able to have a say-so or control yourself, or control what's happening, or stop something you don't like and have more of something you do like. Go ahead.
Music bowing, I've heard you say that space and time are both illusions. Are they essentially the same illusion? If you see through one, will you see through the other?
I think so. Seems that way. But if you see through it, then you also see through the identity of there being a separate being called me, or so therefore the whole thing collapses. You can't really get anywhere. You can't get to some kind of state of seeing through anything. So nothing has happened. Yes, sir.
Is there a non-separate being called me? No.
Would you like that? Okay, you can have that. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Earlier, when you were talking about it can't be seen or can't be experienced, is our confusion on the path thinking that we can see or experience something?
Could be to some extent, talking to ourselves about it, trying to convince ourselves of this or that, anything but to receive, anything to add some kind of a interpretation to things rather than just receive them as they are. If you receive them as they are, you won't know what it is, you won't know what you're doing, you won't know who you are, you won't mind. Let me see if there's anyone on Zoom here off in the distance. I'll get back to you, Milka. Anyone on Zoom that has a question?
Jim Bowing. When you say that you see Buddhas in everyone, is it still illusion?
Sure.
So is it seeing beyond the beings who are in front of you? Bowing.
Not exactly. There is no in front of, and there is no beyond. Those are illusions. It's just this. It's just this. Drop off body and mind. Or the whole idea of location, it could be looked at. You could just look at the location you have now and look at the location you'll have 3 hours from now and the location you had 3 hours ago. Those are all illusory. This one is illusory too. It's just this one is more intense. Called what? The present moment. Anyone else on Zoom? We have over 30 people here. It looks like.
Bowing.
Naveed.
It seems that it's easier to see the unrealness of our thoughts or even our dreams. What is it that you see that makes you see the unrealness of this world clearly, Bowing?
So if I were to go directly to some kind of attribution that I think would make sense to everyone and possibly be helpful, is sitting practice of meditation, shikantaza, to actually do that, to actually see that what arises there has its own dependently arisen energy that comes up and goes away and comes up and goes away. And the consciousness, the awareness that is watching that has no position, has no identity. It seems to take that kind of training so that you're from the point of view of ego, you're lost. You have no idea. It's devastating to ego. If further, you can develop that question a little more if you like.
I can think of it right now. I'll get back to you later. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on anyone else there on Zoom has a question? I'll look at the screen. Chisho.
Vishwaving. According to the 30 verses, even the store consciousness has a sense of location. Is that so primary that you can only see through location after seeing through the self? Well,
The before and after, I think, are extra. I think it's there's just even this is not fundamentally. It's relatively true, but ultimately it also doesn't apply. It's all at once. It's everything. Even Kobun, when he translated the Heart Sutra's mantra, everything all at once. I mean, even that is. Well, there is no all at once, because that implies there's things that are happening that are not happening all at once. It just creates the otherness. So the store consciousness is there as a structure, modality, or something, so that we have some way of working conceptually, working with this, so that we can slowly move along to strengthen the awareness, to understand the first 5 sense fields, the 6th, basic thinking process, the 7th, which is the paranoid part of the mind, and then the alaya, which is the storehouse where all of the seeds are kept, so to speak. That's a traditional way of talking about it, kind of a simplistic image, but it's like that. Everything comes out of that, and something that has not been disturbed for a long period of time something out here could trigger that, because consciousness is not separate. Your consciousness, my consciousness, just like the image I often use, and I think it's a very good one. There's a 10-year-old on a skateboard going down the sidewalk, and they hit a break in the sidewalk, and they go off, and they're wearing shorts, and they hit right on their knees on the cement. You can't really look at that and just think, well, that doesn't bother me. And you'll have a visceral kind of reaction to that, more than likely. I'm not saying everyone would. There are some sociopaths that wouldn't feel. They are so separated from the world that they actually think that that's happening to someone else and not at all about them. That's a person that's living behind lots and lots of concrete. And the upside of it is not even there's no upside to that, other than a temporary feeling of power over everything else. But the downside is they are missing their life, and the difficulty is not over for them.
Kelsey Bowing.
Yes. Kelsey.
This is not about location, but you mentioned how some people are very attached to a right and a wrong. Yes. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions on if we're in close relationship with someone who seems really attached to their ego, and if I'm feeling myself feel like that is wrong, yeah. And there's a right path of sitting and doing the practice to become less attached, but it's creating some like aggression in me. And so I was wondering if you could speak to that. Bowing.
I can just be aware of the aggression. Don't get rid of that. The aggression is just energy that has been highly personalized. So just be aware of that and see, be friendly with yourself, with your energy, rather than trying to overcome that with more aggression, with some kind of, seeing the aggression and wanting to stop. I don't like being aggressive. That's ego. So it takes a while. It takes quite a while. And so just do it with your consciousness, with your awareness. And when you're in a relationship with someone else, as much as you can, just listen to them. Listen, receive. Ask them about how they're feeling and how they're doing. Do not give anybody any instructions about training your mind unless they ask you. If they come up and say, I know you meditate, can you tell me how to meditate? Or has meditation helped you? Keep your responses very simple and to the point. You could say yes. And then let them come up and say, well, how? How does that help you? Say, well, you could say any number of things. That I many years ago, I would say it just helped me see how self-centered I am. So that was pretty true, and still is. I still am self-centered. It's just unreal. It has no status anywhere as anything. And you can do this. You're a meditator, and you're also a therapist, as I recall. And I would say just continue to work, just like when you have people come in your office and in your therapy session, just meet them where they're at. People just need someone to listen to them and be respectful of them, even though they might be telling you terrible things about themselves. You can just receive them. It's all about. That's the most profound form of generosity there is just receive everything, give everything your attention, and don't let up. Don't let up. Just continue to receive. Not easy. And also don't correct anyone. Starting with yourself, stop correcting yourself. There's nothing to fix. Don't believe me, I'm not saying that, but consider it. Consider how would you fix anything that you can't even see? Like the emotions, you can't find them. The emotions have no location, but they have an imputed location, just like the three. What color did I make them? Purple. I could have made them like a mint green. Yeah, let's change it. Okay, the front part is purple. The back side that you can't see. Every time you go around, it switches. It changes around. It's a special kind of trash can. So your mind is like this. But if there's a lot of fear there that something is threatened, or if there's a lot of hope that you can somehow improve or get better, then you'll operate out of hope and fear, which is what most of the world was working with. And we, as meditators, when we first start this, may have to work with that to some extent for a while. And everyone is a little bit different. But all you really have to do, Kelsey, is train your mind. Get to the wall as much as you can. Sit as much as you can. An hour to 2 hours a day if you can, if you have the time. And I know you have children and have clients and so on. So, it may be difficult to do that. But just continue to return to that over and over and over again. And watch the way the mind keeps concluding. Don't stop the concluding. It's about awareness. When I say don't conclude, I know you can't do that. I can't even do that. But when you say I'm going to stop concluding things, then you notice how much you keep reaching and grasping for a cup of coffee. Thank you for the question. Is there further? Yes, Milka.
Milka Bowing, I have a couple of questions from YouTube.
Okay.
Zeb asks, does no location mean no movement?
Yes, it does. And anything you see moving it's an illusion. And anything you feel is over there and not over there is an illusion. You have to see it. And if you see it, it doesn't mean that if you see it, you'll believe it. That's why it's not substantial insofar as a personal identity, because the identity, the way this is being taught and the way I'm endeavoring to do this, I feel helpless. I feel like there's no way I can talk about this, but here I am, and I'm talking, and I'm doing my best to meet you, any of you, where you're at with your questions and help you as much as I can without converting you to some kind of belief in some kind of better way or some kind of way of getting what you want. It's just don't give up. Just intend to see the truth. That's the way I talk about it quite often. Just the intention. You don't have to succeed at anything. This is about the intention, because the conclusion part or succeeding at something closes it right down to a relative situation, which of course is also an illusion, but it just looks real. And then you can brag about it. I used to get really mad, but since I started meditating, I don't get mad anymore. I'm just calm all the time, very peaceful, quite mindful. Pretty much hard for anything to affect me at all. I'm just so blissed out. Yes. You too? You're blissed out.
I was wondering about the opposite. If there's some kind of spiritual progress when we used to be calm and now we're getting more angry and more irritated, is that happening?
We can. If you're no longer defending yourself against anything, you actually are not going to miss your life. You're very lucky, from my point of view, which is limited. From my point of view, if you begin to see what this is, you'll stop fighting with everything and you will receive this incredible world, this incredible illusion called my life. You'll receive that. You'll live your life. You'll no longer be looking for advantages to get ahead of everybody else. Or this doesn't mean you won't go to school, get a degree and become a plumber or a university professor or specialize in some particular thing. Of course. More? Yes, sir.
Thomas in the UK asks, hi, should concentration on top of the nose be strictly observed when sitting, amongst other attention to physical posture, etc.?
On my nose? Your nose? Whose nose?
Of nose, top of nose.
I wouldn't be too concerned about the top of your nose. So this doesn't mean you can't see it. It's right in front of you. My nose doesn't come out very far, but I can always feel of it. So if I could just hold on to my nose through the whole meditation, that would be, I'm being a little bit silly here, maybe quite a bit silly, but I'm just saying it's not about a reference point. It's about seeing the way the consciousness goes this way, goes that way, continues to bring drainage out of the soil pipe. I mean, trying to get things back that, or push things ahead, or a constant manipulation of what's happening in the mind stream. Please don't do this to yourself. Sit down, hold still, hold the body as symmetrical as you can and as straight as you can without being rigid, and watch what continues to move in your kneecaps, in your mind stream, in your memory, in your, any direction the mind goes. Just observe that and don't add, subtract, divide if you can help it. So you don't really need to focus on the nose. This is not a materialistic approach to it. It is a approach that has to do with realizing. And if you realize you won't realize anything, and there'll be no one who realizes. That's realization. You can quote me if you can remember it. There is no realization from the point of view of the language of ego. And if there becomes a teaching like several volumes of Dogen Zenji's amazing teaching, you should study it. We should all study it. We should study the 30 verses of Vasubandhu. We should study the teachings of Nagarjuna, the teachings of the Buddha, which are all over the place. They're written down, and luckily they're translated into a language that we use. And get your body mind to the cushion, sit symmetrical, and watch the comings and goings in the mind stream. Anything else? Yes, go right ahead, Sanho.
Sanho bowing. Is there something useful about the economy of language versus elaboration?
Give me an example. I follow you. Give me an example.
Oh, sure. I talk way too much, it seems, but then
so you said I talk way too much, it seems. Go ahead.
So I could try and trim that back, right? And maybe.
What did you say?
I could try and trim that back, not allow.
No, wait, you said I could trim that back, right? Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
No, you followed up what you said with a right?
Correct.
Okay, keep going.
Excellent. Should a person not elaborate all the time, or is that fine as long as they're aware of it?
You said it. It's about the awareness of the elaboration, and then the elaboration, because it's a dependent light arisen, will speed up, might slow down, might in some situations it might be over the top, and in some situations because you're no longer interested in controlling it, to show up to reinforce a self-centered aspect of the consciousness that is right or correct or is not talking too much or down the line, then that dependent origination that shows up in your life, you being an attorney, that would be very handy for you to out of the situation, to know when to speak, when to elaborate, and when to keep it shut. So I think you're the way you're describing it there, I would say, don't do it as an accomplishment of trying not to talk too much, but just be aware of the elaborations, even when the elaborations seem too much, like you're filling up the space with too much talky about stuff. You got to get close to what you're looking for.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Is there a question on Zoom? There's quite a few people there. There's 38 windows open, and 3 of them, I think, are the monasteries. So, yes.
Is it important to experience that immersion in concepts rather than to step back with the teaching?
Yes, yeah, both. So, and it would be different for each person. But yes, it's always about the awareness of immersion. Yes. And be, and that's the receiving part. So if you're aware of the immersion in it, then you're receiving the degree or the amount or the style or the shape of that immersion, how that's showing up. You could call it radical or, minimal area where there's not a lot of buildup in terms of reference points for the ego to nurture itself on. It's very minimal. It's like feeling slightly lost in the woods and looking around and seeing light coming through the trees and through the leaves and seeing you kind of know where you're at. You have kind of a relative location. We're not trying to do away with location. We're just saying it's unreal. And if you see this unreal, then you can actually use the location in a way that is most expedient for whatever is arising as it is. So there's no personhood there that is trying to get its own way or protect itself from something that is not threatening at all. Or
Geez, I mean, where's the middle way between that immersion and the teaching?
it's at both ends. You have to see both ends. Don't accept it, don't reject it, don't look away. It's awareness. It's not some kind of thinking process that's going to get us to that. Although you or anyone else may need to do a lot of thinking in a particular area. This is why we study. I wasn't trained this way. I was trained to study whatever my teacher taught and a little bit of what was taught generally. But we never studied the Digha Nikaya, the Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, the 30 verses, any of the works of Nagarjuna. They were talked about and interpreted, but to study the actual material was not there. The way I teach is we should study everything we can, even areas that don't necessarily agree with what's being said there, but it's a teaching that comes out of Buddhism, and people have taken certain positions on that, on how that would show up and how that was meaningful in, in a person's practice. More? Just like you studying the Avatamsaka Sutra. Didn't you hate that?
Didn't like it.
You didn't hate it, but you just didn't like it. That's a famous sutra. How can you possibly not like it? Aren't you a Buddhist monk? Isn't that embarrassing? It's not embarrassing. Well, you got a ways to go then. You'll get embarrassed eventually, but it won't be about that. It won't be about Avatamsaka. That embarrassment goes way deeper than that. Good luck to you. Yes, sir.
Andy Bowing. When we chant about the 10 directions,
yes,
how does that relate to no direction or no location?
It's just pointing out the illusion, the shape of the illusion. This way, that way, this way, that way, in between all of those, and up and down. You knew that, though. You can count. You didn't know what they were?
I didn't know what all 10 of them were, no.
Well, which one were you missing?
4 through 6, yeah.
4 through 6. Yeah, you are an attorney. Yeah. Okay, so it's just about seeing it. It's not about. It's just about seeing that it's unreal. It's there. We use it. You know, the kotsu is unreal, but we use it. Knife and fork, salt and pepper. All those are very, very constantly reminding us of otherness because of the relationship with the body. This is why Dogen says drop off body and mind. It's just watch the attachment to the body and mind as when you reach for the salt. So it's just and watch as you go in a particular direction. Notice that that's just an elaborate description. The 10 directions and the 3 times of the illusion. Oh, yes, sir.
Andy Bowing. So is location happening, but it's just the ego that thinks it's real not happening?
I'm following you a little bit, but what is it you want to know?
I guess I want to know, is the location going on, but the ego experiencing it unreal? And I guess I know
both. both ego and the so-called other. It's empty of all of those. It's just one big, gigantic, really fat illusion. And you're not separate from any of it. It's an astonishing understanding. When I say astonishing, it's just extremely simple. It's astonishing. Kelsey, who's that I'm looking at there? Is that a hand puppet or is that a real child?
This is my son, Arthur.
Hey, Arthur, how you doing?
Good.
Right, me too. Is there a final one before we close for the day? Yes, sir.
Another from YouTube.
Yes.
Kate asks, if one has had a habit of avoiding conflict in the face of aggression, for example, attacks from a colleague, how to rightfully care? Is there such a thing as useful anger? Thank you.
Well, I think everything that shows up is useful from the kind of a pragmatic situation, but it's so different. There's something. Was it Kate?
Yes.
Kate. So, Kate. So, I'm not sure which Kate, but it doesn't matter. I guess.
The handle is Fran Dark.
Pardon me.
The person's handle on YouTube is Fran Dark. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I would say something that this may be helpful is to study the what's called the four karmas: pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. And if you're a strong meditator, you can't just use this intellectually. You have to be a strong meditator, someone who practices every day, who is strengthening the consciousness in such a way that you can receive what's showing up. And that way, if you really can receive what's showing up, you know whether to pacify that situation. And there are different ways of doing that. And I can talk more about that. Maybe I'll give a talk on that, on those four karmas one of these days. Pacifying, enriching, in other words, kind of, but you can't do that if you're at all threatened. If you're threatened, but you're not aware of it, and that starts to come up and be more threatening because you feel like you're in the presence of some violence or some anger that is going to overwhelm you, or then you start to get self-conscious and so on. Pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. And that, as I sometimes say to help clarify it, destroying doesn't mean you hit them. It might mean that you destroy the connection. And you wouldn't leave and say, have enough of this. That's not destroying. Destroying would be just leaving. So I like that question, but it would have to be, if you're listening, if you could personalize that a little bit more, I might be able to give you a little bit more feedback on it. I don't know, maybe not, but if anything shows up, if it doesn't, we can close.
Look about it. It just says she had put, excuse me, I am in France. So maybe it takes.
That's okay to be in France. Yeah. I mean, Naveed is in Iran. I don't point my finger at him at all. And it's hard to say where Wulong is. She's probably in. Where are you, Wulong?
I'm in my Brooklyn terrarium.
Oh, good. I remember that little tiny place. We stayed in that terrarium many times.
You've left remnants of your presence here.
I did, yeah. What remnants did I leave? Little paper cutouts and stuff?
Paper cowboys and my little dioramas and all sorts of little surprises in my medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll find something 10 years from now.
I've been waiting for that one thing I hid there, and you haven't not mentioned it yet. And I'm thinking, I'm worried that you might have thought it was food and ate it. But
Oh, I think I did.
probably. Okay, my friends, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Saying that it gets there. May the merit of this
justice penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shifu shison busa moko sa moko hoja horomi. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.